Yeah, so this is a fair use from the Act of 1976. Disclaimer, Section 107, under critical and teaching and scholarship and educational purposes, research. I am not making any money off this. This is fair use, fair use.
Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai. All praises, all honor, and all glory. Kahalayim Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachaha Kodash. Like to give double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and do well. To the elder apostles, bishops in Connecticut, the bishops, the preachers, the teachers, the evangelists, and the four winds, preaching in truth and sincerity, risking your lives more now than ever, the hopeful elect, the elect, Shalom. To the Israelite foreigners, whose phenotype may look like another nation, but bloodline goes back to Israel through your father and have come back to the fold, Shalom. To you sisters, you Chwatim, who listen and learn under your husband, which is your spiritual leader, with meekness and with silence. This is your brother Ram Yahawada with the lesson. Yeah, so here we are. What is it? Digital reset, right? And it's what it's saying, alert, right? A warning, fair warning, right? Right, so blow ye what? The trumpet, right? So an alarm, an alert for you so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians, you Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, to take heed, to take warning from the Most High, right?
So some people believe that everything that's happening in the world right now was actually predicted thousands of years ago. There's a passage in the Bible written almost 2,000 years ago, Revelation 13, verse 17. It says, "A mark will be required, placed on your right hand or your forehead, and without that mark, you cannot buy and you cannot sell." This is called the mark of the beast. And for most of human history, people assumed that this was just a metaphor from the Bible, kind of symbolic message that ancient texts used to describe power and controls in ways that people could visualize at that time, because obviously nobody could imagine the technology that would make this possible today. But if you're paying attention to the world and everything that's going on today, it almost seems like everything we're watching is part of some manufactured crisis, a transition in human history with a new opportunity to centralize power.
We are now moving from the industrial age to the intelligent age. We are living in the transition to a new time, which will change everything. It will change how we communicate, how we work, how we live. But now in this new age, the base will be knowledge, data, and intelligent insights.
Now, in the modern world, people call this prophecy the digital control grid. And I know how it sounds conspiratorial, but I want to show you some things that are actually happening right now. In 2025, a company co-founded by Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, started deploying a device called the Orb. It's a silver sphere about the size of a bowling ball, and what it does is it scans the iris of your eye to get what's called your biometric signature. It's the one thing about your body that's completely unique to you and can never be changed. Now, in exchange for that scan, you will get something called a World ID, which is a digital proof that you are a real human being. As of right now, over 18 million people have already done this voluntarily. Why would they do that? It's because in a world of AI and robots, how do you prove you're actually a real person? This is how. The World ID is now being integrated into apps like Tinder, DocuSign, Zoom, Shopify, and dozens of other platforms. Sam Altman has said that proof of human will eventually be required by every website, every app, every transaction on the internet.
People are really going to need this and really going to need to do this in a privacy-preserving way. So World ID is our effort at that. And our goal is to make World ID be this new proof of human for the internet.
At the same time, the United States passed something called the Genius Act, which is a law that creates the legal framework for stablecoins, aka digital dollars. And what makes a stablecoin different from the cash in your bank account is that it can be programmed. It can be given rules about where it can be spent, on what and when it expires, and whether it works outside a certain area. The World Economic Forum is also now arguing that water, soil, and even the air we breathe needs to be assigned a financial value. it needs to have a price, and it needs to be measured.
Now we need to put the economics of water, not only in terms of monetary values, but also in terms of governance, in terms of recognizing water as a commons that we now need to manage as a broad systems approach.
If we're going to protect natural systems, one of the solutions is to bring nature onto the balance sheet, to bring nature into the ways that decisions are made within business, to allocate a value to it and to bring it into accounting and financial mechanisms.
Basically means the air and water should not be freely accessible. They should be a financial asset. And while all of this is happening, there's been a huge build out of cameras, satellites, cell towers, and AI data centers in communities all across the world. Now, some of this framework was brought to light by Catherine Austin Fitts, who used to be the Assistant Secretary of Housing under President Bush. And she talks about a specific plan of how this is going to look like. She says that there's 3 parts that are being built that have never existed before in human history.
So there are 3 sort of pillars that I track. One is the programmable money, and that's what we at Solari are trying to stop. The second is the digital ID, because you need digital ID systems that are interoperable globally, and then the local hardware. And those are sort of the 3 pillars.
Programmable money, the global digital identity system, and the surveillance hardware to enforce both of those systems. And she says that when all 3 are complete, the people who control that system, aka the central planners, those people will not need laws to influence society. They're not going to need the police or the courts. If they want you to do something, and for some reason you're not doing it, they'll just turn off some important aspect of our lives. Whether it's the money we use, the IDs we need, or they could just restrict our ability to buy and sell or travel somewhere unless we comply.
My ministers will also proceed with the introduction of digital ID that will modernize how citizens interact with public services.
Shalom, give me all praise to Yahweh Bashem, Yahshua Bashem, Kakodah, Shalom, 244,000. Excuse me, and the rest of the elect up there, Shalom to you all. And I'm going to entitle this video, I just hit the screen record. So, let me slow this down. Yeah, we've been correct. GMS, again, we hate to sound like a broken record, but this is going back to the history before the WEF, the World WEF, the WEF, the World Economic Forum. Before it was called the World Economic Forum, it was localized in Europe. Klaus Schwab, I think he came up under the tutelage of Henry Kissinger and maybe others, just going by the history and listening to the interviews that he did. Now he's retired. He's really not retired. He's behind the scenes. That's all. He's like a retired priest of Israel. A retired priest of Israel is still a priest. Anyway, like I said, I'm just gonna let it hit, like I said, hit the record, hit the screen record, and let's see what happens. Y'all better wake up. IUIC, it's time to wake up. IUCPK, it's time to wake up. General Yahan, it's time to wake up. Bishop Nathaniel, it's time to wake up. Yahushua, Bishop Yahushua, time to wake up. Bishop Kanai Gabar, time to wake up. Captain Tazariak, time to wake up. Captain Kazak, time to wake up. And no, GMS, the high priest of GMS, the supreme leader of GMS is not Alex Jones. Okay, Alex Jones started speaking about it in the 90s. I've been knew about this since the 70s. Okay, so we're just gonna let it go, let it roll.
Phrase, Picasso's phrase today for the planet, you'll own nothing, be happy.
Fair use, let me bring this back. You'll own nothing and be happy. That's a chip. Let's go.
Slave labor, POWs, which brings to light his phrase, Picasso's phrase today for the planet, you'll own nothing, be happy. Like a slave POW camp, slave labor person. But he grew up in that environment, and his dad, Eugene's company, again, won awards from the Nazis, a model company. So this is his background. He was there. He grew up in that environment thinking this was a great thing. So in 1971, he begins to establish this thing. It was originally called the European Management Forum. And in a very short amount of time, in 1971, he was able to amass a lot of people from around the world. And then in the 80s, he changed it to what we have today, the World Economic Forum. And that began to...
What they do is they change the name. League of Nations, which is UN. League of Nations came together. at the end of World War I to promise that all nations coming together under one banner, there will be no more wars. What dismantled the League of Nations? World War II. At the end of World War II, they established the United Nations, not the League of Nations Part 2. Because they didn't want to hear that word League of Nations, because that was all bullshit. Well, guess what? So we're talking about after UN, what is it, the 40s, 45. Somebody do the math for me. Do the math for me. But anyway, they spoke about a UN, just like they spoke about the League of Nations after World War I, and people accepted it. They accepted it, with a, we're going to give you an offer you can't refuse. All these nations that are members of the UN had a proverbial gun put to their head. Okay? And this is all conspiracy. Well, hey, Bishop Nate said many, many years ago, he was talking about us. He said conspiracy theorists are generally nuts. This is all part of conspiracy. League of Nations, conspiracy to bring the world under one banner. You want the scripture? Go to First Maccabees chapter 1. Read the whole chapter. Jump down to like the 40th verse. You can read the whole chapter though. Because what did Antiochus Epiphanes want to do? He wanted to bring everybody under one banner. Go back to Genesis 11. They wanted to bring the world under one banner, the Tower of Babel, which means confusion. It was called Babel. The languages, people couldn't understand each other based on what region you lived in. Understand this. Moab spoke so-called Hebrew. Ammon spoke so-called Hebrew. Esau spoke so-called Hebrew. The Canaanites spoke so-called Hebrew. That region, they spoke the language. A further region, the languages was changing. That's where the confusion came in. They'll show you the documentaries of a guy working the confounding of the language, and one guy's working next to another guy. He's speaking a different. No, it was regions that they lost their principal tongue, which was the Paleo-Hebrew, which scholars call it. If you do some research, go to Google, and I did it a couple of times. I said, how did I put it in there? I put in how did I phrase it? I put in the first prototype language, the first language what came up with hieroglyphs, and the Paleo-Hebrew, whether you call it that or not. You have the standard American alphabet. The A goes back to R, the B goes back to Ba, the C goes back to Ka. The A looks similar to the R in Paleo-Hebrew. The Ba looks similar to the Ba in Hebrew, or Bath, which is Bayath, house. They'll tell you that if you go into the origins of the English alphabet, it'll take you back to the Paleo-Hebrew. So let's keep going.
To tell you really what the goal was. Right. It wasn't just helping Europe with their management of their economic. It really is a plan for the world. And his plan for the world is to basically bring what Hitler wanted to do and the tyranny that he only got as far as Germany to the whole planet. Now,
Hitler was part of that whole thing. He was the Illuminated one. He wanted the Rothschilds. He was part of the plan. And one of the founders, he's one of the founders. He was of German descent. I'm talking about Klaus Schwab. He speaks fluent French, English, and German. I don't know how many other languages he speaks. Highly intelligent individual. Came up under Henry Kissinger. If I'm not correct, please correct me in the comment section, in the chat. Okay. So we're finding out that Tiemann, being the wise one of Tiemann, when you do a reference, a word search on Tiemann, it'll refer to them as being wise. They're the wise. They call the shots. World War I, World War II was centered around Germany because of the production. It's like the China of old. Chinese make everything, every goddamn thing.
Really, what you should call what he's doing is the rise of the Fourth Reich. You just can't see that because it's too obvious, right? So I'm not joking. You think he'd scramble it up a little bit better. He calls his program not only the Great Reset, we're familiar with that, but the other term he uses all the time is called the
Reign, Industrial Revolution, Reich Revolution, or Reign. What was the Hitler? I believe that was the Third Reich, if I'm not mistaken, which is the Third Reign, Third Revolution. Then you have the fourth one, the Fourth Reich, which comes out of Germany. Conspiracy theorists are not nuts.
Fourth Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, really it's the Fourth Reich, but you got to scramble it up a little bit. And basically his vision for the planet, I call it a Hitlerian vision, is he wants to, because after all, they're the elites, they have the power,
Right.
they own everything and all that stuff, and it's their job to...
Yeah, so this is First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 40. This is as had it been her glory, right, which I believe is speaking of Israel, so was her dishonor increased, right, yeah, speaking of Israel, and her excellency was turned into mourning, yeah, speaking about Israel as a whole, right, you know, and at that time it was only the southern kingdom there. It wasn't all 12 tribes, it was just the southern kingdom that was in the land of Israel. Well, primarily, should I say primarily, because there were some northern kingdom, but it was primarily southern kingdom, because most of the northern kingdom was in Arzareth, which is what you call America today. They were already on this side of the world about this time. It says, moreover, King Antiochus wrote to the whole kingdom, right? This is under the Greek Empire, which is why you get the understanding of that the Gentiles couldn't be saved, right? Because they were, you know, they were putting them under a banner, right? So like this, that all should be one people. So then these Jews, these Israelites, which are primarily southern kingdom, you know, so-called Negro tribes, right? To give it to you in layman terms, right? You know, because what it tells you that the Lord has hair of pure wool, right? Have hair of wool, and the Father has hair of pure wool, right? And Yahushua came and he told him, if you see me, you seen the Father. So there's no straight hair, long hair hippie. Matter of fact, the Lord even say through the Apostle Paul that it is a shame for a man to have long hair. So we're not talking about a long hair, stringy hair man looking like a hippie, you know, looking like Charles Manson. No, it says his hair is of wool. And when you go to Daniel 7 and 9, it tells you about the Ancient of Days, which is the Father, and his hair is his head, and his hair's on his face, and the head's on his hair, and his head is of pure wool. So it's not talking about a white man. So the southern kingdom was there. So it said, wrote to the whole kingdom that they should be one people, which is talking about the southern kingdom, Negro tribes, and everyone should leave his laws. Which that's pretty much what they're doing now. That's basically what the apostle was saying. They're pretty much doing that. Everybody leave your laws and change everything over to this digital system, and the digital system is going to govern it. And this is a system that never has been done ever before. You're going to have this new way of being able to control even the air, the water, every aspect of life because of this technology. See, and they didn't have it then, but they had the mindset to have this, the Novus Ordo Seclorum, right? Because they were the, you know, at this time, they were the ruling, they ruled the known world. This is under the Greek Empire, right? They ruled a vast part of the known world. So that was, you know, their form of it. And, you know, these people there's reincarnation. And these same people are back, right? That everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen, which mean all the nations, agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrifice unto idols, which that's ultimately what the micro C hip is idol. And now the temple is your body, is yourself, right? Because it's saying what? Because it says they profane the Sabbath, right? Which is your body is now your body is the temple. Now they're going to profane their body by way of idol being the digital implantation within their hand or in their forehead. Yeah, so this is 1 Corinthians chapter 6 verse 16. What? Right? And that's a question mark. Know ye not that he that is joined unto a harlot is one body, right? And that's going to what? The system, right? Because this system, right, is known as the mother of harlots, right? You know, Mystery Babylon. And basically by taking that microchip, right, like I was saying, they didn't have the technology then, but we're in the time 2026. They have the technology, right? So if you're joining, you're going to be one with that harlot, right? Matter of fact, yeah. So this is Revelation chapter 17, verse 4, and the woman was arrayed in purple, right? And purple meaning royal, it's royal color, right? So it's basically displaying, and this is like a symbolic way of saying it, you know, so to speak, saying she's arrayed in purple. So you know, they're in rulership, right? Esau Edom is in rulership, but it's one particular system that's in rulership that is speaking about, which is it's basically speaking about America, because at its height, right, it's still, even to this day, it still has the world reserve currency. Pretty much most currency has to go through the American dollar even now, even though they're doing de-dollarization, they're doing things to break it down, to collapse the dollar, to bring in the digital dollar. I mean, it still is on top, right? When you can go to other countries and you can sanction other countries and you could do a blockade, and then you could basically be in other countries militarily, you know, and they're in the Congo, they're in Nigeria, they're dealing with things that's in Haiti, and then they're sending in other nations to try to make it look like it's not them, right? Because what was it? I forgot. Was it the Kenyan? They did some type of thing and declared it not not, I guess, constitutional, that they should go into another nation, a foreign nation, that they shouldn't go. But then they turned around the very next year and sent their soldiers to Haiti anyway, right? So and then Esau's behind that, but they're gonna not make it look like it's them, because they're gonna put these other faces behind it, when, you know, just but they're behind the whole thing, and that's part of that rulership. And scarlet color, that's also a royal color too, like a red scarlet color. It's a royal color. Only you know, the royal could wear like purple or that red, that scarlet red, you know, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, which, speaking of America, and full of what? Of abominations and filthiness, and her of fornication spiritually. And once you're fornicating spiritually, you know, everything else comes afterward. Yeah, physically, everything, you know, religiously, physically, everything is full of fornications, right, and abominations, right? Now you can have a church with an openly gay pastor or openly lesbian pastor, right? This is that place. It's filthy, fornications, right? And upon her forehead was a name written, what? Mystery Babylon, the mother of what? Of harlots and of abominations of the earth. So that's why it's asking the question. Hey, know that if you're joined to this system, right, which is going to be the digital grid, right? Because they didn't have it at that time, but they have it now, right? That's what prophecy is all about. Giving fair warning is about, right? Saying what you're going to be one body with the digital grid, for two saith he shall be one flesh, right? Going into what? Marriage, right? So basically, like you're marrying the system, right? Which also goes into philosophies, different, religious, doctrines and things. But this is, which in itself is its own religion in itself, because they ultimately they want you to worship the beast system, right? Which was the Roman Empire, but now the deadly wound is healed and returned, and now they're in the digital age, digital grid, digital surveillance, everything. Pretty much what they were saying, being able to control it all, right? But he that is joined unto the other one, Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, is one spirit, right? See, and we're of a whole nother spirit, Lord willing, we're part of that number. But he that is joined unto the other one, Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, right? Or I should say Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, is one spirit. Flee fornication. Every sin that a man doeth without the body. See? So any other things you've done, most likely in this life you've done sin, but it was without your body, right? Without having to put a foreign object inside your body or in your forehead in order to buy and sell. Without the body. But he that committeth fornication, right, being joined into this harlot, sinneth against his own body, right? Connecting and being joined into the system, the digital grid, right? Asking again with a question mark, what? Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit? See, so you're putting foreign objects in your body, and it's not to be put in your body. Your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, which is in you, which ye have of the power, the Most High Yahweh, B'Hashem Yahushai, B'Hashem Rakakadash, and ye are not your own. So you don't even belong to yourself. So therefore you cannot allow these people to put foreign objects in your body to worship their system, right? To have an allegiance to this system, this new system that's coming, right? For ye are bought with a price. Therefore, Salakia, glorify the Most High Yahweh, B'Hashem Yahushai, in your body and in your spirit, which are the Most High's, which are His, which is the Most High's, right? So we're giving you fair warning not to intake or join yourself with this harlot, with this system, right? With their philosophy, with their ways, right? Yeah. So this is Job chapter 8. I'm gonna start at verse 12. Job chapter 8, verse 12. Whilst it is yet in his greenness, whilst it is yet in his greenness and not cut down, right? So why America is existing, it's in its greenness, right? It's basically, it's ruling, it's doing its thing, it withereth before any other herb. So at the same time, this place is basically, it's fallen, right? Because of the was it called, the debt that it has, right? Because how are you the world reserve currency, and you're like you're only like the 15th richest country, right? Which I believe is lower than that. I mean, that's just one of the things that they give you on the stats, that it's like it's down. I believe it was 11 a couple years. It was like the 11th richest country, but it has the world reserve. But it was like the 11th richest country, and I believe it's down to like 15 or something now, which really probably should be lower on the thing. But I guess because of the world reserve, they have to count that in. But it's basically, this place is it's out of here, you know, which they pretty much know that. This is why this is part of that reasoning to bring in the reset, right? So are the paths of all that forget the Most High Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, and the hypocrites, right? And that's this whole system is about, man. It's a hypocritical system. Right now they want to charge you for air and water. This whole place that tells you about this freedom, and that you're free, and this freedom, and you're just free, and they're gonna turn around and be hypocrites and say that they were gonna go against Iran because Iran wasn't allowing their people to have this freedom of speech, and they so-called unalive their protesters because their protesters should have this freedom of speech. But as a hypocrite, when your citizens, the citizens of America, of basically the daughter of Babylon, when they get out there, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to unalive protesters for the freedom of speech. So they're going to be complete hypocrites, because they're going to remove all your freedoms, your so-called freedoms, right? That you technically never had, but in a sense they did. They gave it to you, you know. In imaginary fashions, but hey, people still believe in those things, you know. So it's going to cause what? Friction, civil wars. Hope shall perish. So the hope of this great American dream, this thing that's going to keep on flourishing, or even the hopes of their Novus Ordo Seclorum, hey, it's gonna pass. It's gonna pass away. It's gonna perish. So none of this is gonna stand, because the Lord's bringing in the kingdom for His Son. So it's not gonna happen. Whose hope shall be cut off, right? And their hope is to bring everything into one world, government, right? And they will do it to a certain degree, but for the most part, it ain't gonna last long. Like, you might as well just, it ain't gonna last long, right? And whose trust shall be as what? As a spider's web, right? Being the internet, right? What's like the internet? It's the web, the worldwide web, right? The internet of things, the internet of all things, the internet of bodies, right? The web, right? And they'll be able to use that with surveillance, because even a spider, if a thing touches a part of the, any part of the web, it can sense where it's at. You know what I mean? There's no, It's like a trap. You know what I'm saying? And that's what they plan on doing: surveillance, trap, and using the web, the internet, right? The internet of all things, to entrap you. And he shall lay upon his house, lean upon his house, like he shall lean upon his house, but it shall not stand. See, and so he's trusting and leaning upon this Novus Ordo Seclorum, right? But it's not gonna stand, right? And he shall hold it fast, right? Trying to hold on to his kingdom. This Edomite kingdom, but it's not gonna last. But it shall not endure, right? So yeah, Esau, your kingdom is not gonna endure, right? Yeah, so this is Revelation chapter 13, verse 17. And that no man, right, or woman, right, might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name, right? Let's go into that word mark, which is charagma.
Strong's G 5480. Charagma. Charagma.
Right? A stamp, an imprinted mark, or of the mark stamped upon what? The forehead, or what? The right hand, as a badge of the followers of the Antichrist, which really the system is Antichrist. It's they're like the Lord said, there are many Antichrists already. There are really many anti-Hamashiachs already. So it's not talking about one person. It's talking about the system in itself, and that system is the system of the Edomites, right? Because they want to separate you from your power. They want to declare that they're your power, so it'll be within your right hand or in your forehead, which they're talking about the Elon Musk, the brain chip in your head, Elon Musk. They're talking about right hand, left hand, right chip. They're speaking of this digital ID, which is it's just a precursor to them putting it in your system within your hand, right? Because this is because it's going to tell you, what is it? You got to go a little deeper, go to Karox, which is the delivery system, which would be a needle or tattoo gun, whatever, however they do it. But it's the delivery system, Karox, from Karoxo, to sharp to a point, right? A needle is sharp to the point, right? Through the idea of of scratching, right? Getting deep into the, right? Because back then, when they had to put things on tablets or things like that, it was they take a thing and chisel, into the stones and create the words, right? But you don't have to do that now, because it's a digital age. Now you have what they call a motherboard, and all the data and all the things are in it. But now they have to put it subdermally within you, right? Matter of fact, let's go back. Because subdermally in you to what? To prove what? Ownership. The mark of the mark branded upon what? Horses, which they call you goyim, cattle, right? And that proves what? Ownership. So when you do that, that's ownership. Sharp says a palisade or a rampart. It says a pale between which earth, stones. So it's, it's almost like what they would say, like a picket fence or like a fence, and you take the sharp end, and they pile drive it through the earth, through the dirt, through the sand. But what are you made of? From the beginning, it tells you that you're made of what? Of the earth, right? So this be through the delivery system. It's gonna drive it through your earth, right? Because it just said hand, right hand. So when you're going into this, you have to already understand that it already said forehead or right hand, right? So when you're here and it's telling you sharpen to a point, and it's telling you through the earth, well, how did that reconcile with who you are, or your hand, your right hand, your forehead? Earth, within the earth will be, well, that's you, that's your body, right? And when it's there, right, gotta go a little deeper, right? Because that's the delivery system, a needle, tattoo, whatever you want to come to, and it's what?
Strong's G 1125. Grapho.
Yeah, like I said, a motherboard, what they call a motherboard, and it has what? Writings to write, with referring to the form of what? Of letters. delineate, delineate. How do you say that word?
Delineate.
Delineate. Yeah, I'm saying delineate or delineate or form letters, right, on what? A tablet or your cell phone or whatever computer, because they'll be able to scan it. It'll come up on the tablet, come up your name and things like that. This is why they're building the data centers, because the little micro CHIP only has so much data, but they need to be able to pull it up, and then it'll connect to the bigger data, basically to the data centers, right? To be able to what? Because parchment paper is something that they use a long time ago back in Egypt. You had the part, and they was able to write down certain things, your taxes, when you needed to pay them, blah, 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 so on and so forth, right? But people don't use parchment paper. Even now, they tell you, go digital. Don't, you could save the earth. Don't you want to go digital? We could just send it to your email. We'll send it to your phone. So now your bill or whatever, it'll come to your phone, or it'll go to your email or something like that. You don't got to get mailed, because they hit you with this so-called guilt trip that you're trying to save the planet because of the trees, right, or whatever. So you're like, oh yeah, that's a good idea, but not understanding that they're really programming you to be to pair the system that's coming, the world, the Novus Ordo Seclorum, that they want it anyway, right? So now there ain't no paper. It says, or other material. So what other material is it? That micro CHIP or that grain of rice is of a whole nother material, right? But it also has what? The writings, to write with referring to the contents of writing, right? So now you got to think, okay, well, this thing said it's a charagma, and it symbolizes the branding of a horse, which basically represents ownership. So then if it represents ownership, then the karax, where it said it's sharpened to a point, and it's like driving a stake through the earth and rocks to get to its destination, to be, so-called upright, should I say, so that's a delivery system. But it's not saying that they're putting a thing and it's going to be hanging out your hand. No, because when it's there, it said that this thing is going to have a graphel, right? Which will be able to have writings, to express writing characters. So, think about it. You're in a digital age. What's happening? Measure the time diligently in itself. That's what the scriptures tell you. Right. This is my favorite one. Yeah, right here. This is my favorite part. To commit to writing things not to be what? Forgotten. Here you go. Here it is right here. Written down. This is the most important part. Records. So this thing, they'll be able to hit the micro CHIP, and it'll connect to the bigger records, which will be these data centers that they're going around everywhere building. Data centers bigger than, what does it say, 7 football fields or something like that, right? Building 15-minute cities everywhere. What do you think that's about? Yeah, so this is Isaiah chapter 36, verse 6. Lo, which means to look, thou trustest in the staff of this broken what? Reed, right? Being that this world is falling apart. This economy, the world, the system, everything about it is falling apart. So basically, you're going to have to trust in this broken system, which, though they're coming into it with a whole new world, right? The brave new world, right? Look that up, right? If they got any information on that, right? Because they've been scrubbing the internet a lot. Yeah. So basically, they're gonna look at trying to use your own self against you. Because back in the time, at one point in time, you believed in the American dream, and to snatch that all away from you, and to refer to something that you're familiar with in order to gain your trust, to get it back, basically what you lost, what they took from you, right? That's what it said, the new normal. But this system, they're talking about charging you for air and water, and which even now we've always, it was always a joke, like, damn, what are they gonna do? Start charging you for air? They're gonna charge you to breathe? Well, it sounds like it. I mean, that's but you can't trust this system, this Esau system. You're trusting in a broken. This dude is broken. He don't have no understanding. He's just the devil, man. On Egypt, and that's another spiritual, like indicator or a name for America, right? Also known as the daughter of Babylon, but it's also known as what? Egypt, right? Whereon if a man lean, right? So if you trust in this system, you're trusting in Esau, you're trusting in this man. If a man lean, it will go into what? His hand and pierce it. And that's what they plan on doing. They're trying to pierce what? Hand, right? So they want to put it in your forehead, in your hand, right hand, left hand, right? So the Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to all that trust in him, right? So if you trust in the system, you're basically calling this system your God, your hope. You know what I mean? Yeah, so this is Amos chapter 5, verse 18. Woe, which means judgment unto you that desire the day of the Lord, right? Which that's what they were saying. They were saying, yeah, we need to go to this war because we're going to bring in Armageddon, which it's going to be a judgment to you desiring the day of the Lord, right? Because, hey, you're great, rob and murder the entire planet, right? Somehow you think there's no justice for that, and that you think the Lord doesn't require, because so far nothing's happened to you, and so you just think it's like regular thing. People live, people die. That's just normal. That's the reason why the Lord said, hey, if one come back from the dead, hey, who you're not going to change. You're not going to change your way, because you figure people live, people die. It's not a big deal, right? But the Lord had Yahweh Shai come back from the dead, right? When the story of the Lazarus and the rich man, right? The rich man said, hey, let someone come back from the dead. Speak to my brothers. They'll change their ways. They'll change. No, they won't, because it happened. Yahweh Shai came back from the dead. Lazarus came back from the dead, right? Matter of fact, what was it, the guy, like I was speaking about, I did a lesson on the guy who they were saying in Africa who was healing people, doing actual miracles, not like Elon Musk saying, right? Where they got to put a micro chip in you, some type of thing in you, and he was like, it's like Jesus like miracles. Yeah, I can get somebody to walk, but it's gonna be mechanical, But that's their pseudoscience way of thinking, and then and them believing that themselves are God, but they're not realizing what there's a judgment. Woe unto you, excuse me, Salakia, that desire the day of the Lord of Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai. To what end is it for you? All right. If it's judgment, what do you think the end of this day is going to be for you? The Lord said in one day, ultimately in 1 hour, hey, you're out of here. The day of Yahweh is darkness, right? Which is coming to Esau's midnight and coming to our day, right? As Israelites, Lord willing, part of that number. But if not, hey, the elect is going to be, and we're going to be not too far behind, because they're going to be having a lot of childbirths in the kingdom, and not light, as if a man did flee from a lion. And yeah, this is going to be what? That polycrisis, because you got to flee from a lion, and a bear met him, right? So not only are the people going to be going through polycrisis, you elite are going to be going through a polycrisis, because the Lord he's going to show you that he's the Most High, right? A lot of you are going to escape, and you're barely going to make it into the bunkers. The Lord is going to show you that there's a God, there's a power, that you wasn't, you know, you wasn't expecting, you know. But for you Jakes, you so-called Black, Hispanic, and Indian, yeah, you're gonna go through this polycrisis as well. Says, and this is what they want you to do. As if a man fled from a lion and a bear met him and went into a house and leaned his hand up upon the wall. So they want you to trust in the system, right? Want to have you trusting in Wall Street, stock market, all these things. What is eventually going to collapse? And when it says, and the serpent, which is Esau, Edom, right? Started off in the garden as a serpent, but now he's a great big dragon. And bite him, right? Which is the microchip. They plan on putting it in your hand. It's gonna pierce you within your hand. The Karax, which is the needle, is gonna pierce you, right? And then it's gonna have that thing is gonna be set up as the branding of ownership, right? Which is gonna have all your data, which is gonna be coming up to the data centers that they're building, all your information, and shall not the day of Yahweh B'Hashem Yahweh Shai be darkness and not light, even very dark and no brightness in it. Slakia. Even very dark and no brightness in it. So with all that, I want to give all praises, all honor, and all glory unto Yahweh B'Hashem Yahweh Shai B'Hashem Ruach HaKodesh. I'd like to give double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and do well, to the elder apostles, bishops, and Connecticut, the bishops, the preachers, the teachers, the evangelists, and the four winds, preaching in truth and sincerity, risking your lives more now than ever, the hopeful elect, Shalom, to the Israelite foreigners whose phenotype may look like another nation, but bloodline goes back to Israel through your father and have come back to the fold. Shalom, to your sisters, your chwatim, who listen and learn under your husband, which is your spiritual leader, with meekness and with silence. This your brother Ram Yehuda with the lesson. Abba Ball, Kwam Yasharallah.